Chapter 796, Chop the Table. In the past, some people wanted to obtain treasures from the Heavenly Network's territory, such as relics from the remains or other training resources. But this was not quite right. All those who wanted to obtain treasures had probably been killed. In recent years, Niating had killed many people. Since the dawn of the magically rich era, the East's top expert, from the Heavenly Network, stood on this land and protected it as if he was protecting a treasure. Before the magically rich era, the Heavenly Network already had an extensive information network. Thus, Niating could obtain a lot of information efficiently. He could even obtain accurate information on where experts entered the borders. Gradually, when people thought about the Heavenly Network, they were repelled from the territory he protected. Thus, the territories protected by the Heavenly Network had been very peaceful for the past year. Suddenly, Niating could no longer attack. It was like a crack had appeared in a tightly sealed door. Smart people, such as the bishop and the saint, clearly knew why this had happened. A presence that people could not understand fully had appeared and had started to control the chessboard. It was as if this chess player was omniscient and omnipotent. They were able to predict every single move. Thus, the saint and the bishop found an opportunity. They would follow this chess player and challenge the current authority that the Heavenly Network had over the realm of cultivation. This was like asking a tiger for its skin. But the bishop and the saint also had their own ideas. They pondered, this controller was probably not very strong, or was not strong enough to challenge the Heavenly Network. If this controller suddenly wanted to turn hostile, the saint and the bishop would have the ability to break away from the war. Of course, this was still very dangerous. But the temptation to suppress the Heavenly Network was too strong. The saint was in a plane. He started to analyze the description the controller had provided of Shinsong Jing carefully. The only way for a Class A expert to overcome life and death, and advance to Shinsong Jing, was to become a law themselves. From that point on, humans would be on the same level as the laws of the world. The saint knew them when he observed Niating advancing. But he learned from the thread that this world was so weak that it was unable to resist the repulsion from the laws of the world. This made him puzzled. What had happened to the world? Why was it in its current state? Furthermore, the thread clearly said that no matter how strong the law was, it contained original energy. It was on the road to uncover the truth. If it was shifted even slightly, it would create a chain reaction. This had nothing to do with 1,000 kilograms or 100 kilograms of force. 100 kilograms of force would be painful to a practitioner, while 1,000 kilograms of force would be even more painful. But laws were different. Ordinary power could destroy, but laws could change. They had different meanings. The saint understood that Niating still had the potential to destroy the earth. He had the power to chop off a piece of the table at any time. But, if everyone only wanted to know the secret of the ancient Yi clan in the Changbai Mountains, or what was inside the sword formation, would he stop them? What would Niating choose? The saint did not believe that the Heavenly Network would cause everyone, including himself, to perish because of the Changbai Mountains. Furthermore, the large organizations knew what the Heavenly Network was concerned about. Their morals were very different. They still feared Niating. Thus, it was impossible for them to dive straight in and start killing civilians. No one wanted to irritate Niating. After all, Niating was not a soft-hearted person. If they irritated him, they would perish together. To be honest, it was hard to imagine how much insider information the Heavenly Network possessed. The large organizations could not send their full strength. Under these circumstances, even if they pushed the battle to the hinterlands of the Heavenly Network's territory, they still might not win. Even if they did not have Niating, they had Chen Bailey. Even if they did not have Chen Bailey, they had many other Class B experts who were at their peak. But, if they just wanted whatever was in the sword formation, did not kill civilians and left after taking their gains, what would Niating choose? To destroy the world? The saint did not believe that he would do so. The saint broke into a smile. He looked forward to seeing Yeting's conflicted expression. Lu Xiaoyu's summoning of 7 Lu Shu clones definitely made others despair. Even Linison, who had just advanced to Class B, wanted to give up. But he could not just surrender. Linison and the rest were no longer flowers in the greenhouse. They would give it their all, even if they were left lying down. Suddenly, each Lu Shu clone held a spear. They started hurling the spears like cannons. They were well coordinated with one another. Even a Class B expert like Linison found it hard to resist this attack. He tried to use his flying swords to break the formation, but it was as if the spears could see. They did a salvo and hit the flying swords. Chen Zuan and Cheng Qiuqiu were no longer like little bees. They returned to Lu Shu's side and rested the flag against the wall. Brother Shu, don't stand us up with the shares you promised us. We are so tired. In the past, Chen Zuan had led a very luxurious life. Thus, now that he could no longer rely on his family, he had to find a way to earn money. When Chen Zuan looked at the students from the opposing team by the side, he was very happy. They looked as if they had just eaten a bitter melon. They were shocked by the 7 Lu Shu clones, who were so well coordinated that they were able to make a Class B expert flee in fright. In the past, someone had said that if their attacks were well coordinated, 7 Class Cs could kill a Class B, but could their chemistry be as good as the 7 Lu Shu clones? Chen Zuan laughed at the students. Do you see how impressive my brother Shu is? Even a Class C brother Shu is invincible. Suddenly, a girl asked Chen Zuan softly, I feel that Lord Lu. Teacher Lu is very aloof. Is he typically like that? Chen Zuan was shocked. Did she have a crush on Lu Shu? She was a girl from the opposing team. Before the battle was even over, she had fallen in love with someone from the enemy team. Could she be considered a defector? Chen Zuan thought about it. He could suck up to brother Shu now. It's hard for you guys to understand my brother Shu. These kinds of battles aren't even worth watching for him. If you aren't a Class A expert, you have no right to speak to him. My brother Shu isn't aloof. He just doesn't recognize weak people. Even if he does, he won't remember them. Chen Zuan felt that he had truly sucked up to Lu Shu and was very pleased with himself. He smiled at Lu Shu. Am I right, brother Shu? Lu Shu was silent for 2 seconds. He then turned to look at Chen Zuan. Who are you? From Chen Zuan's Distress, plus 666. Chapter 797, Chief Manager of Yuzhou. Chen Zuan was speechless. On the other hand, Lu Xiaoyu was about to defeat Linison from the Southwest Cultivation College. The stadium was filled. 1/3 of the spectators were standing. The aisles became very packed. The moment Lu Xiaoyu materialized 7 Lu Shu clones, Lu Shu started to earn an endless stream of distress points. Some were for him, and some were for Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Shu felt that he had made the right choice. As long as Lu Xiaoyu went first and defeated their opponent, he would be able to earn a steady stream of distress points. He needed 2 million points to light up the 3rd star. He had already accumulated 1.7 million points. Lu Shu had kept thinking about the Sea of Qi. Once he earned distress points, he would eat qi fruits to build up the snowy mountain. This way, he would be able to produce the 3rd sword spirit very quickly. Although it was not a standard sword spirit, it had its own benefits. What if he could defeat his opponents with a surprise move? When he killed Takashima Teritsu, he had relied on a sword spirit as well. When he was in Sardinia, the 2nd sword spirit displayed its extraordinary talents, and defeated Satan. Lu Shu had benefited from the past 2 sword spirits. Thus, even if it was not a standard sword spirit, he still looked forward to it. As for lighting up stars, Lu Shu felt that if there was no major qualitative change, he was not in urgent need of the celestial powers and abilities. But he realized that for every star that was lit up in the fourth nebula, the number of strands of the sparrow shade would increase. Lu Shu once again placed his focus on advancement. After all, since he had lost the mystic water, his greatest area of effect weapon was the sparrow shade. The more strands the sparrow shade had, the more opponents Lu Shu could handle at the same time. He calculated. If he lit up all 7 stars, the sparrow shade would have 4,608 strands. Amazing! Li Xianyi had 10,000 invisible aurablade prototypes, while Lu Shu only had 1,500. But if he was able to advance, he would be able to have the same power as well. Although he lacked in numbers, the strands of the sparrow shade were of much better quality than the invisible aurablade. As Lu Shu fed Lu Xiaoyu with fruits, he ate some as well. In today's competition, Lu Xiaoyu would face the entire cultivation college and earn distress points. Lu Shu would be able to earn points with Lu Xiaoyu. He calculated that he might be able to light up the 3rd star tonight. The Southwest College thought that Linison was their trump card. As long as he was able to defeat Lu Xiaoyu, the following battles would be much easier to handle. Although this did not mean that they would be champions, if they were able to defeat the species research specialization at their peak, it would be even more glorious for them. But they had underestimated Lu Xiaoyu, and overestimated Lin Isin. Although Lu Xiaoyu had also just advanced to Class B, she had controlled Johnson and Anthony for a very long time. She was completely invincible. Lin Isin still had the worry of not being used to his new power after advancing, but Lu Xiaoyu did not have this concern. Although Lu Xiaoyu's attacks were violent, she did not threaten Lin Isin's life. When she realized that Lin Isin was powerless, she stopped. She did not take advantage of the situation to kill him. Lu Shu had told her that they were all students and she had to have mercy on them. Lu Xiaoyu would remember whatever Lu Shu told her. If he told her to make her opponent despair, she would do so. If he told her to have mercy, she would do so. After Lu Xiaoyu stopped and dismissed the Lu Shu clones, Lin Isin sat at the side of the battlefield, panting heavily. He asked, "How are you able to materialize L? Teacher Lu?" Lin Isin almost called him Lord Lu, but his will to survive made him quickly rephrase his words. Everyone wanted to know as well. If Lu Xiaoyu was a multi-type metahuman, then so be it. But how was she able to materialize humans, when other materialization types were unable to? It felt as if Lu Xiaoyu had a massive secret book that allowed her to do things others could not do. The entire stadium quietened down. Everyone was puzzled. Lu Xiaoyu calmly looked at Lin Isin, who seemed to want to speak. Everyone realized that Lu Xiaoyu had also wanted to speak, but stopped. Was she hiding a secret? She looked at Lu Shu. What was the last advertisement? Everyone in the stadium turned to look at Lu Shu. Lu Shu awkwardly said, "Ahem, Snickers." Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lin Isin. He understood. Because you ate Snickers? Lu Xiaoyu calmly nodded her head. Good. Next. But the next round did not begin immediately. The team from the Southwest Cultivation College complained to Zhong Yutong. They claimed that these kinds of methods were too much and should be banned in future battles. Zhong Yutong laughed and said, "When I proposed to allow Luoshan to have a pass, you objected. You said that everyone had to rely on their own power. Why should Luoshan have a pass? Now that you've complained that their methods are too much, how can I care about you? Just rely on your own power." Lu Shu looked at the system's back end. He had obtained 2 million points. Not only would he be able to light the 3rd star tonight, even Lu Xiaoyu would be able to light up her 1st star. At that moment, the events occurring at the Changbai Mountains finally resulted in a chain reaction. News that Nie Ting could no longer attack had been revealed on the Golden Foundation forum during the fight between Lu Xiaoyu and Lin Isin. Back then, not many cared about what was happening on the forum. But the moment Lu Xiaoyu's battle ended, the news surged forth like an undercurrent, engulfing the entire stadium. Everyone looked at one another helplessly. They had thought that after Heavenly King Ye had advanced to Shinsongjing, he would be invincible. But they did not expect him to be in an awkward situation. The large organizations were now headed towards the Changbai Mountains. A war was about to occur. Zhong Yutong looked at his phone and his expression became serious. He gathered all the participants and the representatives of each specialization in Luotian. We will postpone the competition between the 7 major cultivation colleges. I will release the details later. All specializations, resume lessons. Make sure that the students are not restless. Notifications were sent out. Lu Shu suddenly realized that Zhong Yutong had suddenly become like the chief manager of Yuzhou. He was systematic even in the face of a disaster. Chapter 798, Ruthless Official Yu Mingyu. The competition between the 7 major cultivation colleges, which they had started planning for, since a long time ago, was cancelled just like that. The lessons returned to normal, as if the competition had never occurred. The students were all restricted within the classroom by an invisible force and had no choice but to attend lessons. This was because Zhong Yutong was worried that some students would recklessly go to the Changbai Mountains. This was not disaster relief. This was a real war. Thus, discipline was of utmost importance. But Lu Shu had not expected a war to take place so quickly. As he was preparing to go home, Yu Mingyu hurriedly left the Luotian Cultivation College. When Lu Shu asked him where he was going, he did not reply. The car traveled for about 10 meters before turning back. Yu Mingyu alighted from the car and calmly looked at Lu Shu. If I was as strong as you are, I would already be at the Changbai Mountains. Of course, I can understand that you may have some difficulties that are hard to talk about. But, people are dying there. Yesterday, Nalin K and Li Ishiao killed 2 Class B experts who had been hiding in the mountains. But Nalin K was ambushed and was slashed at the waist. She almost died. Lu Shu, when will I be able to call you Heavenly King Lu? I look forward to that day. Lu Shu was silent. Yu Mingyu left before waiting for him to answer. But Lu Shu saw that Yu Mingyu was full of murderous intent. He had brought 100 men with him. The road ahead would not be easy. At that moment, a cleansing had begun at one of the areas under the protection of the Heavenly Network. Yu Mingyu came to the black market near Route 301 and sent orders to lock up the entire place. Afterwards, he started to take attendance. One by one, people started to step out. They might be old secret practitioners or young men, but no one was spared. Everyone was taken away. As for where they were taken to, no one knew. At the same time, it was as if the same thing was happening all around the country. After a year of peace, the Heavenly Network suddenly raised their daggers. Their reasoning against outsiders was the same. They had betrayed their home country. Treason. At first, everyone was worried that the Heavenly Network had gone crazy. But now, they understood that the people they had captured were spies who had been hiding in the country. Furthermore, the Heavenly Network already knew about their identity, but did not capture them. Now that a war was about to happen, they no longer hesitated. They had to cleanse their territories. Lu Shu had high authority. He could even see whether the missions to capture these spies had been successful or not. He knew that Yu Mingyu and Zhong Yutong were very efficient. Either that, or all the persons in charge of the departments in the Heavenly Network already knew that this day would eventually come, and had done their preparations. Perhaps in the past, they wanted to keep the spies who spread fake news. But they no longer cared about this now. They would cleanse the entire country. They could not allow them to affect internal affairs. Wanted lists started to appear. There were people from many organizations. As of the present, they had all been successfully captured. As Lu Shu watched this unfold through the information system, he suddenly felt as if a war was really upon them. This did not just happen in China. Overnight, mutinies happened in various organizations overseas. These organizations had wanted to come to the Changbai Mountains, but after a mutiny, a new leader rose up. There was no news from these organizations since then. Some said that the Heavenly Network was definitely behind this, but the Heavenly Network had never confessed to anything. It was as if the internal affairs of these organizations had nothing to do with them. Although only small organizations were affected, but the entire realm of cultivation could see the Heavenly Network's determination. The Heavenly Network was still silently killing people. Many years later, someone named this day the Day of Blood. This was the night when the realm of cultivation was thrown into confusion. The Heavenly Network was like the Grim Reaper, who wore black and took away the lives of spies. There were also many tragedies that had suddenly occurred overseas. It was as if someone had secretly planted a mine below the realm of cultivation, and that mine had exploded today. Over 1,000 practitioners had died today. No one had thought that the Heavenly Network's counterattack would be so cruel. Suddenly, everyone realized that the Heavenly Network had always had the courage to carry out total destruction. Yu Mingyu stood at the gates of the black market and counted the practitioners with a dark expression on his face. Yu Mingyu, who was typically kind, was wearing the black Heavenly Network uniform. He was like a ruthless official. The secret practitioners had never seen this Yu Mingyu. No one knew how many people he had killed overseas before returning to the Heavenly Network. Suddenly, a secret practitioner ran towards the highway in a flurry. Yu Mingyu sent out a scarlet-red flying sword that pierced through the heart of the secret practitioner. The sharp sound produced by the flying sword as it flew through the air made the others uncomfortable. The scarlet-red light in the dark night seemed particularly frightening. The past 1 year had been very peaceful. The Heavenly Network sheathed their swords. But the secret practitioners were very clear that there were definitely many more people like Yu Mingyu in the Heavenly Network. Yu Mingyu looked at the secret practitioners and smiled. You will be rewarded for reporting spies. 1 magical stone for every spy reported. Of course, you must have reliable evidence. The white lamp shone down on Yu Mingyu. His teeth were pearly white. The Heavenly Network was furious. They would use blood to warn the unlawful. Thousands of secret practitioners and the large organizations had planned to enter the Changbai Mountains today. This was only the first batch. Top organizations, such as the Department of Faith Theory, the Phoenix Society, the Denki, and the Pledge had not arrived. The Red Sparrows and the secret practitioners entered the Changbai Mountains. There might not be danger. The secret practitioners were not dumb. With their morals, they did not believe that the Heavenly Network would kill so many people at once. But before they had even entered the mountains, they heard about what had happened elsewhere. For a period of time, no one could confidently say, yes, we have a lot of people. The Heavenly Network would definitely think about humanitarianism. They can't kill so many people, right? On the other hand, the Red Sparrows did not dare to take the risk. They would wait until the Department of Faith Theory and the Phoenix Society arrived before making a decision. Only then would the large organizations be able to fight with the Heavenly Network. The Red Sparrows alone would not be enough. The Heavenly Network's determination to kill had driven the secret practitioners out of the Changbai Mountains, but the large organizations remained unmoved. Some had obtained information that the sword formation was Nie Ting's sword. What was hidden in the canyon? Why did Nie Ting destroy his own sword to create a sword formation? The large organizations recollected themselves, but they stuck with their original plan. If they entered from all directions, the Heavenly Network might carry out a mass destruction. But if their objective was just the Changbai Mountains, they did not believe that Nie Ting would perish with them. Furthermore, they were waiting for the controller to make another move. An outstanding controller would not give up here. Chapter 799, Lu Shu's Decision. They only needed a piece of news from a distant place. The competition between the 7 major cultivation colleges, which had been highly anticipated, seemed to have been forgotten. No one talked about it. The intense discussions regarding the competition on the forum stopped. No one talked about who the strongest school was. No one cared about the results of this competition. Everyone was now talking about the Changbai Mountains. It was as if this was the only matter that could affect their spirits. This was the first time in the history of the Heavenly Network that they had faced so many outsiders. In the past, Nieting alone would be enough to deal with them. But now, Nieting could not recklessly attack. Someone commented on the Cultivation College forum. Heavenly King Nye, please attack. All the members of the Heavenly Network are willing to die with you. It does not matter even if the entire world is destroyed. But the problem was, these passionate and excited youth had this awareness, while others did not. Ordinary people looked at the Golden Foundation Forum as well. Thus, when discussions were occurring on the Golden Foundation Forum, the ordinary people also voiced their concerns. The students in the Cultivation College believed in mutual destruction. They would rather kill than face dishonor. They would not mind even if the world was destroyed after Nieting had made his move. But many ordinary people suddenly stepped out and voiced their hope that the war within the realm of cultivation would not affect the safety of the world. Their voices became louder and louder. It was as if it had been orchestrated. Lu Shu had thought that the controller had decided to orchestrate this on the Golden Foundation Forum instead of in the Darkness Kingdom. Did they hope that Nieting would be affected by the opinions of ordinary people as well? This was a very difficult decision. When the British withdrew from Dunkirk, even the wise Churchill was in a dilemma between giving in and fighting till the end. Who could claim that they were wise and far-sighted? It was easy for the observers, but only those who were involved knew how much courage was needed to make this decision. All the spies that had to be killed had been killed, and those who had to be captured had been captured. The students started to discuss their plans to go to the Changbai Mountains and resist their opponents. Some even wrote letters with their blood, expressing their determination. They wanted to request permission for them to join the war. But once they had finished writing their letters, they could not find Yu Mingyu or Zhang Yutong. Lu Shu knew that Yu Mingyu had gone to the Changbai Mountains after the cleansing was done. Zhang Yutong had started to gather manpower at Yuzhou. They had no time to deal with their students. The teachers in the Cultivation College started to become nervous. They had been entrusted with a mission in times of danger. They had to ensure that the students remained in the classroom. If they suddenly lost sight of this aim, and some students sneaked off to the Changbai Mountains, they would be responsible. In the past, the Heavenly Network was afraid that the students were too fearful. But they were no longer fearful. All of them supported the war. Lu Shu brought Lu Xiaoyu home. He silently entered his room and closed the door. He started to sort out all the clues. Lu Xiaoyu leaned against the wall and furrowed her eyebrows. She tried to eavesdrop on him. Little Fury, who was beside her, wrote in its notebook. "What are you doing?" Lu Xiaoyu furrowed her eyebrows. "Lu Shu isn't even singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star tonight. He must be very involved." Little Fury was dumbfounded. It did not understand what Twinkle Twinkle Little Star had to do with anything. Lu Xiaoyu looked at Little Fury. "Go next door and ask Lu Shu why he isn't singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." When Little Fury heard this, it felt that this could be a trap. It wrote, "Why don't you ask?" You've gotten a lot smarter recently." Lu Xiaoyu was surprised. "I want to test how adaptable you can be." Little Fury proudly wrote. "Sure. What would happen if you go against Lu Xiaoyu?" Lu Xiaoyu asked. Little Fury was dumbfounded. She was not testing how adaptable it was. This was just a threat. From Little Fury's distress, plus 499. Little Fury held its head and ran next door to ask. Lu Xiaoyu heard the sound of the window opening, followed by Little Fury being thrown out by Lu Shu. From Little Fury's distress, plus 599. Lu Xiaoyu walked gingerly next door and looked in. Lu Shu was upset. Since when did you know that I sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Since a very long time ago. Lu Xiaoyu hid behind the door and observed Lu Shu's expression. From Lu Shu's distress, plus 666. Come, let's sit at the rooftop. Lu Shu stood up, held Lu Xiaoyu's hand and walked out with her. They jumped up onto the roof and looked at the evening lights. Are you thinking about whether to go to the Chengbai Mountains? Lu Xiaoyu asked curiously. Lu Xiaoyu understood Lu Shu best. Lu Shu often went to the rooftop when he was pent up. Yes. Lu Shu nodded his head. I know that there is danger waiting for me there. There are so many enemies waiting in the dark for you to fall into their trap. But you have no choice. This feeling is unpleasant. I think that it'll be fine if we go. Lu Xiaoyu softly said, I can now absorb a third soul. Lu Shu gasped in shock. He wondered whether this was part of the controller's plan. On the other hand, Lu Xiaoyu was already thinking about collecting a soul after killing someone. But on the flip side, he could be happier with Lu Xiaoyu's simple train of thought. If someone was planning something against him, then kill him and collect his soul. Lu Xiaoyu, I'm really envious of you, sighed Lu Shu suddenly. Although Lu Xiaoyu's train of thought was exceedingly simple, it reduced his troubles. Lu Shu, let's go to the Chengbai Mountains. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly lowered her voice. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Why? I know that it will definitely be very dangerous. Someone is even expecting us to go there, said Lu Xiaoyu. But last night, I dreamed that something had happened to the old man in the Chengbai Mountains. I don't want anything to happen to him. Lu Shu was dumbfounded and looked at Lu Xiaoyu. He had wanted Lu Xiaoyu to go to school as he was worried that she would be disjointed with society. If she had no friends, no teachers, and no classmates, what if she became unsociable and eccentric? Back then, Lu Shu was very clear that Lu Xiaoyu would not care about anything but Lu Shu. Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Shu were originally selfish and unsociable kids. But they had never resented the society of the country they were in. When they were children, they did not have the concept of countries. They resented the entire world. Lu Shu had never blamed society for being unfair. He was even grateful to those who had helped him. He understood gratitude better than others, as one would only learn to appreciate things after losing something. What was more cruel than being abandoned by one's own parents? But many people had walked into their lives. One example was Li Xianyi. Yes, the old man may be in danger under the scheme. Yu Mingyu had told him that when he became heavenly king, he could be aloof and indifferent. But why was he still aloof and indifferent when Li Xianyi was being ambushed? So what did he train for? Chapter 800, A Buried Past. Lu Shu suddenly realized that Lu Xiaoyu's way of thinking was much simpler than his. He had always been considering what traps might be waiting for him, how powerful the opponent was, what techniques the opponent would use against them, and what exactly the opponent was thinking. But Lu Xiaoyu had never thought of all this. She only had one simple thought. Li Xianyi might be in danger. Lu Shu would definitely not be willing to selflessly offer himself as tribute. He had thought that even if there was a disaster, they still had Nie Ting. The strongest expert would be able to handle this, right? Back then, Lu Shu did not know that Nie Ting could no longer attack. Thus, he was not very worried. Since they had the strongest expert, even if they lost, they could still send out the expert. Lu Shu had wanted to be a quiet spectator and earn distress points. He did not know that Nie Ting could not attack. He had never thought that the heavenly network would lose people. After all, they had a Shensong Jing on their side. They would not have any pressure. Yu Mingyu's blame made Lu Shu slightly helpless. The most important thing now was that he did not know that Nie Ting could no longer attack. In the past, Lu Shu thought that the heavenly network was very stable. He did not feel any urgency to accept the position of heavenly king. Even if 10,000 people infiltrated the borders, Ting would be able to settle it by himself, right? Of course, there were more people in reality, about 100,000. But Ting would be able to settle it by himself, right? Those who knew that Ting could no longer attack would definitely panic. Why did Lu Shu not step up in such a crucial time? It would not be an overstatement to say that Lu Shu was the third strongest in the heavenly network. He could even be considered the second strongest, since he had a Class A chaos. But Lu Shu did not know. He was silent yesterday because people were still dying, even though the heavenly network could conquer the entire world. This was the result of information that did not corroborate. Thus, Lu Shu had spent the entire day thinking. He had also been very silent. But now, Lu Xiaoyu had simplified everything. Lu Xiaoyu was a young girl. She was immature and did not know much about the ways of the world. She remembered how kindly Li Xianyi had treated them. Now that he and the Golden Foundation were being targeted, they should help him. If they hated someone, they would verbally abuse them. If they liked someone, they would not turn back. If they did not want to care about someone, they would ignore them. They did not think about what the other person could provide them. This was a child's world. It was much happier than the adult world. Lu Shu, are we going? Lu Xiaoyu asked in a serious tone. Lu Shu smiled. You might be able to play with the soul of a Class A. Then I want the bishop from the Department of Faith Theory. He tried to kill you last time, right? She did not seem to have considered whether they could defeat him. Thus, she did not even think about whether he would be willing. That night, Lu Shu converted all the distress points for him and Lu Xiaoyu to level up. Lu Xiaoyu lit up the first star in the fourth nebula, while Lu Shu lit up the third star. His sparrow shade grew to form 288 strands. Lu Shu went to the Luotian Cultivation College in the morning to attend a meeting that lasted for more than 1 hour. The meeting was organized by the dean. He wanted to share his thoughts. For example, although the students were ready to take action, the teachers had to remain calm. Lu Shu did not think much about it. He took the notes and walked off with the veterans to prepare for his lessons. Before the afternoon lessons, the dean was still worried. He personally went to find Lu Shu. Before Zhong Yutong went to the Yuzhou Heavenly Network, he had told the dean to keep an eye on Lu Shu. The dean deliberated his tone before saying, Lu Shu, please remember what I told you. Don't say the wrong thing during lessons. To be honest, the dean was not worried about the other teachers. He was worried about Lu Shu. Now that Zhong Yutong was busy with other things, he understood how Zhong Yutong felt. No wonder he was always pulling his hair. Lu Shu cheerily laughed. Okay. You don't have to worry about me. I'll just teach one more lesson before leaving. When the dean heard this, he was secretly happy. What happened? Did Lord Lu not want to be a teacher anymore? Great. This way, he would not have to worry about him. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. Wait, where are you planning to go? The Changbai Mountains. Lu Shu then took his notes and went to class. The dean was dumbfounded. He looked at Lu Shu's back as he walked away. What? They had always been worried that the campus would be in a mess. For example, one student might break the rules and secretly go to the Changbai Mountains. Not only were they not useful, they might even create more trouble. After all, students would not be able to influence wars. Thus, it was of utmost importance that the students remained where they were. They had spent the morning discussing how to prevent students from going to the Changbai Mountains. But even before any student sneaked off, one of their teachers went. As the dean, he could not bear this responsibility. He hurriedly called Zhong Yutong. Lu Shu is going to the Changbai Mountains. He did not expect Zhong Yutong to reply in such an excited tone. Really? I'm going back to Luo City now. After that, the dean heard Zhong Yutong's shout of joy over the phone. Prepare a car for me. I have to go back to Luo City. Finally. The dean bit his lips and put down the phone. It was over. The principal had gone mad. When Lu Shu came to the training ground, 10,000 students from the Luotian Cultivation College were already sitting there. Some students from the other cultivation colleges had gathered to listen to Lord Lu's combat lesson. The students from the other cultivation colleges had planned to go home, but they heard that Lord Lu was delivering a lesson. They requested to attend the lesson before going back. Lu Shu's fame in the Heavenly Network had reached a new peak. He was well known even in other cultivation colleges. People knew how strong the species research specialization was. Suddenly, a very enthusiastic student suddenly asked, "Teacher Lu, what will you be covering today?" Lu Shu thought about it and said, "Today is the last lesson. I will talk about what happened at the collection of gods, as well as a hero who loved bean sauce noodles." The last lesson? The collection of gods? What was happening? When the students heard this, they were dumbfounded. This was a buried past. It had been classified as one of the Heavenly Network's greatest secrets. Very few people knew that Lu Shu had gone to the collection of gods. Almost no one knew where he had gone and what he had done in that period of time. Lu Shu had never mentioned the collection of gods in his previous classes. On one hand, he could not talk about it. On the other hand, there was the portrait of the 9th Heavenly King along the corridors. Lu Shu felt that if he talked about that past, he would no longer be a cultivation college student, nor an ordinary combat teacher. He would be the 9th Heavenly King of the Heavenly Network, a faux class A who no one had met, but had killed many.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, then we just put 'em on the shelf. Try to look to the heavens.